James,
Yes, buddy.
is your office gonna have to move?
Is my what?
Is your office gonna have to move?
Why? Why would it move?
Somebody told me the building you're in was sold.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe you're not in that building.
Which building are we in?
I don't know. I've never been to your office.
That
He's
sounds
moving
comfy.
to the brothel in the back.
Why don't you visit?
I need to.
Hang on a second, I'll tell you.
Unmute. There we go. See, it starts in 3 minutes.
Pete, your internet came back okay?
I can't hear.
Jesse, according to the Registry of Deeds website
Yeah.
and the town of Bar Harbor, the property is owned by All Gray LLC.
Yeah.
There have been no new things recorded. There's a deed, a mortgage, and the assignment of rents and leases. That's it. So unless it's in the process of being sold and they haven't told us.
Okay. Nope, you're probably good.
Well, who'd you hear the rumor from? I get rumors are always good.
What?
Who'd you hear it from?
Katie said she thought she read it in the paper. Must have been a different building.
Oh, Katie's just trying to scare me. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Jesse?
Yes.
Thank you.
What you're saying is that it's a hazard.
All right. Hi, everybody. So Mel Atherton is on his way to my house because he doesn't have a signal. So if we could just sort of stand by until he gets here, he should be here momentarily.
Have you heard anything from Marcia?
I have not heard from Marcia.
Okay.
But everybody else has a signal, looks like.
Yep.
Good. This will be. All right, I'm just going to see if he's at the back door.
Joanne, see the J, Joanne.
Which way do you want Mel? He's here. Okay, Mel has arrived. I just get him set up with his computer.
Come over closer to me.
You want to sit here? Or you want to?
Here.
If it's okay, I'll just go on you and not worry about going through your passwords or
Yeah,
getting hooked up and all that.
yeah. No, that'd be great. Here,
Okay.
let me
It's every
bring
man-
over this chair.
So you can see the,
Bring my folder and the pen.
Excellent.
My
That's all you
glasses.
need, I think.
So sit over there.
Yeah, get you set up right
I
here.
can't see you yet.
See you.
Come closer to
Okay.
me, there. Now smile.
All right. No word from Marcia yet, Jesse?
No,
Okay.
I'll try calling her.
Okay. I think we'll get started. Or do you want to give her a call first? Oh, he's on mute. For those of you who are
You can go ahead
on
and
Tremont,
start.
that's okay. We lost power a couple of times and it was really touch and go. Oh, here comes Marcia. That's great. So we didn't know if we were going to be able to even have this. And Mel still doesn't have his internet back, but I do, and we're close neighbors, so we can make this happen. Okay. So without further ado, I'll call the meeting to order. Board of Appeals for the Town of Tremont. Like to do a roll call. Joanne Harris, Bass Harbor.
Mel Atherton, Bass Harbor.
Richard Cohn, Seal Cove.
Mike Hayes, Bass Harbor.
Marcia Madeira, Bernard.
Okay, I have determined that we have 5 out of 5, so we certainly have a quorum. And you all got a copy of the agenda. Any adjustments to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. we'll move to the first variance request. This is a request submitted by Jennifer McLean and Brendan McPeak. I need to ask, does anybody have any member of the board have any reason to recuse themselves? Hearing none. I have been advised, James, would this be the time to let the board know that they would like to continue this if at all possible? Okay, so I've been advised by Mr. McLean and Ms. McPeak that she could not get
Joanne,
off. Yes.
she is on the Zoom right now.
Oh. Okay.
So
Oh,
I'm not sure
okay.
if she still wants you to continue or if she wants you to do it tonight.
Okay. So, Jennifer, I'm just going to ask you, I had been advised that you had wanted to continue this appeal into May.
Yeah, I am technically still working at the moment, but I have kind of 2 ears in both directions. So I wanted to give this my full undivided attention. So as long as I can, I will be in your grace and I will listen in and try to accompany you guys and answer any and all of your questions for now. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can continue.
Tonight.
Yes, if that's
Okay.
okay. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's
Okay.
the plan. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we will proceed. So this variance request has to do with the construction. Well, first of all, Jennifer suffers from an undifferentiated connective tissue disease and Ehlers-Danlos, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, syndrome.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't know, did you mention that this was appropriately advertised and?
In the newspaper, James?
Yeah, however you usually post it.
Jesse is giving me thumbs up. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. At any rate, Ms. McLean suffers from this physical difficulty, and this variance would be for medical necessity in order to exit the back of her home. So the back door has a 2.5 to 3 foot drop, and a safe platform with handrail is needed for safe entry and exit from the home. The property is non-conforming with a 50-foot water setback. Due to setback requirements, we are not able to build a safe exit and entry off the back door for owner with medical condition. All homes in our subdivision have large back decks situated closer to the water and significantly larger than that which we are requesting. The prior owner was more able-bodied. The man who built the home, he overlooked the need of an entry-exit of medical necessity. And she did provide a drawing. I'm assuming all board members have these papers. She further states the homeowner, Jennifer, suffers from her physical difficulties. These are painful conditions that can make climbing stairs difficult without assistance. Jennifer undergoes IV infusion therapy and surgeries to treat her condition. Oftentimes, assistance is needed during these treatments. For this reason, it is necessary to have a small stepping platform that can fit no more than 2 standing adults to provide assistance with the stairs. The platform that we are requesting would not change the character of the waterfront, as all of our surrounding neighbors have large decks. However, what we are requesting is not a deck. It is a small stepping platform only that cannot fit furniture, only 2 people. We also currently have only 1 safe entry and exit from the home in the front. The basement stairs do not provide a safe form of exit from the home quickly if needed in the event of an emergency, and they are too steep and too many. Being Jennifer is high risk, we are unable to appear, well, we all are unable to appear in person. That's why we created Zoom. Also very important, we have received incessant harassment from our neighbor at 15 Western Way, Bass Harbor, Matthew and Martha Madeira, as well as their large family and friends and former owner, Ken Olson. We do not know these individuals personally as we are new to the neighborhood. However, they have been harassing us because we put up a town-approved legal privacy fence. A member of the board, Marcia Madeira, is a family member of the harassing neighbor and good friend of Ken Olson. For this reason, we ask that she not have vote or input on this variance, as it would obviously be a conflict of interest. Also, any board members with close ties to these individuals should recuse. We ask for fair consideration of this variance, as it is a serious request affecting and related to one's healthy and safety with pre-existing conditions. Thank you, Jennifer and Brendan. Also in our packet was the full and complete letter sent to Jennifer and Brendan McPeak, Jennifer McLean and Brendan McPeak, by our code enforcement officer, John Larson. I'm not going to read all of that. I think you probably have all had a chance to review that and his findings of fact. So what I would like to do is,
Madam Chair?
yes, James.
Sorry to interrupt again. I wonder if, I see Marcia is there. Maybe it's a good time to talk about bias before you go too much further.
Well, we can. I did ask if anybody felt they needed to recuse themselves.
But I think
And,
it was, I don't know if Marcia was online when you asked that.
I was.
You were? Okay.
So she does not feel she needs to recuse herself. Jennifer, if you feel like you need to say something, you can.
I definitely feel that Marcia should recuse herself from this vote. Since we closed on the home in September, my husband and I do not know personally Ken Olson. We do not have a relationship with Ken Olson. We do not have a relationship with the Madeiras. We do not personally know the Madeiras, other than a quick, hi, how are you? We just moved into the neighborhood. We have had overwhelming harassment from both the Ken Olson as well as the Madeiras through written emails, exactly as you have seen in the town comments. Also, the Madeiras have a no trespass ordinance that has been given to them by Officer Jennings because they were trespassing onto our property without our permission. We asked them to please stop, and it continued. Officer Jennings then gave them the no trespass warning, and he advised us to post our property as no trespassing, which we have since done. So there's definitely a conflict of interest.
Marcia, you want to respond, please?
I have seen Ken Olson twice in my life since 1968. I wouldn't call him a really close friend. I wouldn't know him if I fell over him. I have not harassed you. I have not been on your property. I have the last name Madeira. How do you know that I'm connected with Matt?
We have been told by people in the neighborhood that you are close friends with Ken Olson and that you have gone to his house for social events.
I don't even know Ken Olson. I have not gone to Ken Olson for his social events, and I don't know the people in the neighborhood.
I just think it would be the right thing to do.
All I'm looking for is the laws in the land. I have no financial interest in it. I have no interest in Ken Olson, and I do know the Madeiras. I don't.
Like I said, being law enforcement at this point has been involved.
I have
And again,
I have not been on your property.
I will not on this conference confirm or deny that, but I do have
You have
reason
proof
to
that I've
believe.
been on your property. Show it to me.
I do have reason to believe that you have visited within close proximity.
I have seen Matt's house.
I will say that, like I said, with the installation of a legal 6-foot fence that we cleared with the town, we
Really?
have had overwhelming harassment. Overwhelming. In this town comment, the town comment that was recently presented by Mr. Olson, who again, we don't know, perfect strangers, is just one of many, many, many of its kind that we receive on an almost daily basis.
Okay, I think Ms. McLean, we've gotten the picture.
Yeah.
Marcia is saying that she has not participated in any harassment. So
I would have to disagree respectfully.
I understand what you're saying.
Madam Chairman, I've raised my hand.
Oh, yes, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
That's okay. I would like us to use the reaction so we can speak in order. I guess I question what role this board has in her accusations of harassment. I just don't understand that. We're not here to talk about, believes she's harassed. There's state laws that cover that. She should get an attorney and sue them or whatever she wants to do. But I don't know about the harassment and I don't care about the harassment. You know, your allegation of harassment. I want us to deal with the case in front of us, and that's all I think we should be doing at this point.
I completely agree. I do feel that I would like to leave the harassment out of it. However, when one of the parties that is to vote on the outcome of our situation, which is regarding a totally different matter, my health and safety, I feel being the situation has somebody with such close ties to the family in which we are dealing with, and there is law enforcement involved at this point, that is not in good faith.
All right, Ms. McLean. Yes, Rick?
The issue, I mean, I agree with Mike that the issue before us is whether or not to grant a variance for this porch or stairway, whatever it is. It would be interesting to know if there are any objectors to that on that issue. I mean, I read the thing from Mr. Olson, and he seemed to want to create a situation in which every annoyance in the neighborhood is going to be resolved by this board. And we can't do that. We've got one job to do, and I don't even know if there are any objectors. I also don't know what Marcia's relationship to the other Madeiras is.
Okay, so what we are here to do, it will be given, any objectors will be given a chance to speak. But at the moment, we're just dealing with whether or not Marcia can weigh in on this question. She feels she can. The appellant feels she cannot. I think what we did the last time we were faced with this is the board took a vote based on what the information from the appellant and from Marcia was that was presented. So given that's our precedent, that's what I would like to do. I think we're prepared to do that. Are we not?
Good idea. I'd make that motion that we.
I don't think we're prepared to do that until we know if the Madeira family is going to be objecting to this, and if they are, what Marcia's relationship to them is. Otherwise, I don't know how to evaluate a so well concealed relationship. I don't know what we're dealing with. I mean, it seems to me that if the Madeiras, Matt and his wife, are objecting, and she's a sister-in-law or something like that, that's something we ought to know before we vote. I don't know that that's so, but I just use that as an example.
James, I guess I would ask you to help me out here. You're muted. You're muted, James. Cannot hear you. You're muted.
That better?
Good.
Okay,
Yes.
I was in the middle of a ginger snap cookie. The issue is not, it's not.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, just a second. It's not conflict of interest, it's bias. As Pete Madeira will tell you, there's a lot of Madeiras. You know, a lot of Madeiras around. The primary responsibility is with the person who the people think has a bias So generally, what you do is you ask that person whether you have a bias, get some background information as the chair is doing, go for a motion. If Judge Cohen or others think that you don't have enough information, obviously you're going to have to get some more. As far as the appellant and her claims of whatever, that's a police matter. As you know, this board has no interest in that. I disagree with Mr. Cohen, but if he wants more information, he's a board member, and I think you should get a motion one way or another that Marcia is biased and should not hear this, or that she is not, and then discuss it. Get the motion first, then discuss it.
All right, Mel, you wanted to make a motion.
I move that the board finds that there is no bias on Marcia Madeira's behalf on this issue with the appeals board.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you. I have a second. Okay, now we can discuss it. Rick, if you feel you need more, you can ask Marcia directly, I suppose. You're muted.
Mute.
Muted. Rick.
we're all challenged.
Oh, boy.
The two questions I had was whether or not, I mean, I see there was a Matt Madeira and a Peter Madeira. I don't know these people. I don't know what Marcia's relationship to them is, and I don't know whether the Madeiras, other than her, are objectors tonight. And I think that would be useful information.
Marcia, do you want to address this any further?
I was married to Matt's brother from 1974 to 1978 and haven't seen him since. That's why I have the name Madeira. And as anybody said, there's a lot of Madeiras around here.
So that's over 40 years since you were
Since I-
officially an
since I-
in-law.
Yeah, right.
Okay, thank you. Does that satisfy you, Rick, or you still want to hear from the Madeiras?
That sounds pretty good. I can deal with this.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, I'm going to call for a vote. The motion is that Marcia can weigh in on this question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? All right. Well, you don't get to vote. It's only members of the board, Jennifer. But,
Yeah, no problem. Just want to make my.
I
Thank
understand.
you.
I understand. I do want to.
I have a question.
Yes.
Before
Go
we
ahead,
get
Mike.
into this, the application in front of me has both the administrative appeal and the variance checked. And the form pretty clearly says the undersigned request that the Board of Appeals considers one of the following. They're both checked, so I don't know whether we're here on an administrative appeal or a variance. So if I could get clarification on that, that helps.
Okay, and I erroneously attributed the letter to to John Larson. Actually, it was Jesse who was the code enforcement officer during this particular situation. So Jesse, would you like to address that? I'm assuming it's a variance and administrative appeal was checked erroneously.
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, I have one further question. Then, since that we're here on a variance, I assume that the appellant then has no objection to the findings of fact of the code enforcement officer himself, that his position is accurate, and what they're asking for is a variance from the land use ordinance. Is that correct? Reasonable?
Seems reasonable. I guess I'll turn to you, Jennifer. The findings of fact you have no disagreement with, you're just looking for a variance from the ordinance. Is that?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mike, where'd you go?
I'm sorry, I'm getting some tea.
Okay, between ginger snaps and tea, I don't know if we can continue this meeting. All right.
It's actually close. It's ginger tea.
Okay. Okay.
right.
So what I'd like to do first is to have the appellant sort of, I read your statement, Jennifer, but if there's anything more you would like to say in support of your variance request, please do so. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jesse for him to sort of walk us through his findings of fact.
Sure, no problem. I think, in respect of everyone's time, I think you said it. The letter basically states everything you read. And really it just comes down to health and safety in my condition. And so thank you for this process.
All right. Well, thank you very much, particularly for the brevity. Jesse, can you please sort of walk us through the town's position?
Yeah. So back this fall, before closing on the house, I had a couple meetings out there with Miss McLean and Mr. McPeak before they purchased it. They had some questions about the deck. There was no decking, no stairs, no platform at the time. It just was a 2.5 foot approximate drop off. At the time the home was reconstructed by the previous owner, they went to the maximum setback that they could with the structure itself. So there was no allowance for a deck on the front of it. We discussed potential options that would comply with the ordinance, such as a large stone. We talked about patios and that they could do like a pea stone type patio. There was no reference at that time to a medical condition or requesting a variance. It was upon my realizing that a deck had been built after the sale of the home without a permit. I sent the notice of violation. I did confirm with the DEP before sending it that they would allow a set of stairs with a handrail, but no platform, which is reflected in my notice of violation. It was after that phone call, we had a phone call. At the time, Ms. McLean said that they had put on the deck because their their mortgage holder required them to do so in order to close on the home. And I explained that the mortgage holder doesn't override the land use ordinance and that it was still not permitted. It was at that time that she asked about a variance regarding the medical condition. That's where we are at this point.
Thank you. I skipped a couple of steps here, which I'd like to back up a little. It's been a while since we've really gone through one of these. We need to determine that we have jurisdiction over this appeal. Does anybody see any reason that we do not? It's in the town of Tremont. We're good. We have jurisdiction, right? I'm also needing to ask whether we believe that the applicant, that would be Jennifer in this case, has standing before the board. She is the property owner, thereby a resident when she is here in Tremont. Do we believe that she has standing before us?
Yes.
I would think so.
Okay. So I also need to ask if there are interested parties on this call who wish to be heard, besides obviously Jennifer and our and Jesse. All right, I am seeing no hands. Okay, so it's now. Do you have any, Jennifer? Do you have any questions for Jesse regarding what he has said?
No, I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Jesse, any questions for Jennifer? Thank you. All right, so I'm going to throw it open to the board to ask questions of Jennifer if they have any, or of Jesse if they have any. No questions from any board member? Yes, James?
I guess Marcia wanted to get in there too. I can wait till after Marcia.
Speak now?
Yes, Marcia?
Okay. I'm just wondering if an exit from the building could be placed on one side or the other of the building instead of on the shore side.
All right,
Uh,
good question.
Madam Chairman, there is an option for that. If you were to look at in our land use ordinance, the current land use ordinance, Article 10 enforcement. I'm sorry, Article 11 definitions. Under increase in nonconformity of a structure. I'll let people get to that page in their document if they would like.
What page is that, Mike, please?
It's page 74 of 85 on my copy.
Yep.
I don't.
Okay.
It's essentially in the middle of the page, increase in nonconformity of a structure.
And your point on that, Mike, is?
The last, I believe it is the last two sentences, really the last sentence is the major one. It says, it starts with the word hence on that, in that paragraph.
Yep.
Starts with what?
I'm just gonna read it since I've got it in front of me.
Okay.
It says, hence, a structure may be expanded laterally, provided the expansion extends no closer to the water body, I'll get it right, tributary stream or wetland than the closest portion of the existing structure from that water body. So the option exists for a secondary exit, which would in fact require fewer steps than the one being asked for as a variance within our own definition of what we would allow. And I think that's probably the better solution here. I will state I guess my view is that prior to purchasing this property, the current owners were informed by the code enforcement officer about what would be allowed and not allowed. And they chose to continue and go forward and close on that property. And now they come to us essentially asking us, even though we knew we can't do this, let us do this. And that doesn't work very well with me. We have an option. If she needs a secondary exit for health purposes, she can go laterally. She does not have to go out the back of the building. And that would be my recommendation for what we decide here tonight. I would like to point out also, though, that since there was no argument with the code enforcement officer's findings, that the other portion of his letter has to be fulfilled. They clearly have removed vegetation, which is illegal, and they have to replace that vegetation. And apparently the McLeans are not arguing that point tonight. So that part of it stands. And I would say that the whole order stands. And if they want relief by going to a lateral secondary exit, then that option is available to them. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I get in here?
Yeah, what I was going to say though, and I think maybe we're going to say the same thing, James, is we're really still in the public portion, of the hearing. And, you know, Mike, all of that, I'd like to move that to when we close the meeting and have our deliberation. Is that where you were going, James?
Yeah, I was going there. Plus I wanted to ask some questions about it. And then, you know, I understand Mike and others might want to get into the discussion, but I think that's later. So I have a few technical questions. The first one's for Jesse. And it sort of goes to what Mike was driving at. When the building was built, the egress, I assume, was legal, right? It got a certificate of occupancy.
It was back in the 80s, I believe, or early 90s, but yeah.
So you went out the back door. You know, if you needed to go out the front, you went out the sliding door, but there's windows there. It's not too far to the ground. So there's no need, I guess, we'll get to the medical condition in a minute, but there's no need as a fire safety matter for an additional egress. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so in my smoking room, for example, in my basement, it can't become a bedroom because it only has one exit. And under the life safety code in Bar Harbor, you have to have 2 exits for a bedroom. So we have no safety problems per se. All right, so the second question I have is, I only have about 3. The second one is I want to know more about from Ms. McLean about the connective tissue disease and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. What is that? How does it affect you? You know, is it like MS? Is it like ALS? Can you,
Yes.
you can walk and talk, but you have trouble, you're not steady going up and down stairs? Is that worse in the daytime or the night? Is it going to get worse as you get older? Things like that.
Yes. So I have undifferentiated connective tissue disease that I was diagnosed with. I have since undergone infusions, which I do often. I'm usually connected to a pump of IVIG immunoglobulin therapy. I do them pretty much once a week for almost a half a year at a time. And I have had ribs cut out on my right-hand side for inflammation. I've also had a cryogenic ablation done to nerves throughout my spine and my rib. And I also suffer from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is basically a loss of collagen to the connective tissue, which has also caused me a lot of hardship with overall just muscle functionality, nerve problems, neuropathic pain. I do have a home nurse that will come to my home, and she will stay with me for the entire 8 hours infusion that I do once a week, every week, usually on the weekends. And she has to monitor my vitals every 15 minutes while I'm given the infusions. And so to me, it was important to have an exit from my home. I do tend to do the therapies outside. And so it's nice for me to be able to have the option to, carry my IV pole and my bag of the IVIG therapy in and out of the home. So for me, that's really what this was about. I can also, I've periodically needed to rely on wheelchairs and crutches going through these therapies, as they do tend to weaken you. You do become very weak, especially in the days following. And like I said, having to go in and out for surgeries to treat nerve pain and inflammation, really don't know what the future holds for me. So right now it's, there's not much they can do on undifferentiated connective tissue disease. Is basically, it's very similar to lupus. It's very similar to Sjogren's syndrome, NMS. It just causes systemic inflammation. And you really don't know what to expect. I have, in the last 2 years, just ended up having tricuspid regurgitation of my right heart valve and a heart murmur that now comes as a result of the tissue becoming stretched beyond capacity. And now I've had, these heart abnormalities pop up as a result. So really, it's just a matter of taking it day by day. I do plan to have, Bass Harbor be my forever home. And so to me, making it safe in the event, I understand that you can use windows to egress. But in my situation, that's not, climbing up to jump out is not an option. And also it's not something, it's just not a safety preference for me. I would like to be able to exit my home if needed, while doing infusions, or, with the future, if the disease should progress to me be in a permanent wheelchair, have a platform for me to be able to have my husband pick me up and put me on it, and also have my nurse pick me up and put me on it, and not have to rely on, just one form of exit from my home. And I understand you had mentioned side exits. However, we do not have doors to the side of our home that we would be able to build an exit or an entrance into or out of. We do have a basement door but you would have to go down a flight of 20 stairs and then up another flight of about 7, which for me in my situation is not practical.
Madam Chair, if I could get in with a couple of small questions. One is not to be unfeelingly cold or more than I usually am, but you have an exit in the back. And, you know, what's wrong with that?
Right. So we do have an exit in the back. When we purchased the home, there were no stairs at the back of the house. And like I said, I do these infusions weekly. And so I do have a home nurse, and usually the way it'll go is we'll do them outside or we'll do them inside, and we tend to move around. And I carry a lot of equipment with me when I do these things. So, you know, just to have like a 2-foot step up to your home in the backyard when you have to carry a lot of equipment, it's a lot. So.
All right, the final question I have is in regard to the law says that disability variances are for people that live somewheres or regularly are there. I know you have a house in Seal Harbor and one in some other state, Leon, the Kennebec, New Jersey.
New Jersey.
So how regular are you there?
We spent our entire summer in Maine. It's why it was hard for me to attend this meeting. We don't take off at all throughout the winter or the fall, and we pretty much spend our entire spring and summer in Maine. So it is our home.
Okay, thanks.
Jennifer, I have a question if I may.
Sure.
And then, so when you purchased this home, and you saw the drop off from the back of the house, and you probably assumed at that point that was a little steep.
Yes.
And you talked with Jesse, who was then our code enforcement officer, about what could be done, and he shared what could be done. So I'm curious as to, first of all, if it was that, you know, that, and by the way, I am very sorry for all of the physical challenges that you have, and I'm very sympathetic. But having seen that obstacle, why it, and finding out what you could and could not do, why you felt it was still a good purchase for you and your husband.
Okay, so a few things. We did understand that the house did not have stairs in the back, but we did feel that, you know, adding a rock to the back was just not practical. It's not safe. It's slippery, especially with somebody in my condition. You know, so it was something we always knew in the back of our minds. We would definitely seek a variance because of the health necessity and the safety necessity for it. You know, and that's how we went through and purchased it, because Maine is our happy place. That, you know, when you suffer a health illness such as my own, Maine brings me joy. And you know, that house in particular brought me great joy, and I couldn't picture ourselves anywhere else. And it's when you find a place that you love, you go there. So we were going to, you know, obviously try to figure it out.
Okay, my second question before I ask it, Bill and Ruth, you might want to mute yourselves so we can, yes, please, thank you. So when Jesse told you your situation, my understanding is you went ahead and built something and took out some vegetation. What was your thinking at that time?
Okay, so we did speak with Jesse, and we were very grateful that Jesse took time to meet with us and discuss everything. That said, we had to put the step on, like Jesse had said, because of, in order to close on our property, anybody that purchases a mortgage, the insurance company required us to put that on prior to closing in order to meet the terms of our agreement. So we had put it on, and we knew we were going to seek a variance for my health. We didn't advertise my health with Jesse at the time. It's not necessarily something that, you know, I openly talk about or I openly discuss, because I don't, you know, it sounds silly, but when you suffer from chronic illness, it's not necessarily something you want to talk about all the time. You kind of want people to treat you like the individual you are and not always ask you, how are you doing? How are you feeling? I try to forget about it. So I think, you know, that's our reasoning at the time, was just inquiring of what was allowed and what wasn't. We did get that put on, which our real estate agent could definitely communicate with you guys. We can provide you that information after the fact. We were required by our insurance company to put that on by the mortgage in order to get the mortgage. And then, like I said, we did discuss with Jesse what could and couldn't be done as far as the trees. So we have the utmost respect for Maine. We really do. And when you're discussing removing a vegetation, I just want to make it perfectly clear that, we are working with the DEP. We did follow guidelines given by the DEP. We did not seek a permit from the town. We had a misunderstanding that we needed to get a permit from the DEP. And the DEP is working with us, and we are dealing with that. But there was no like mass removal of vegetation to the point where we went far beyond like DEP regulations. My husband did refer the entire time to the codes and stayed within the limits.
All right, thank you. Rick?
Yeah, no problem.
I wonder if Jesse or John could give us a description of what the staircase and whatever else is involved there that's been built looks like, what its size is, what its impact is. I haven't seen it, and I have no sense of how obtrusive it is.
It is, I believe John was just out measuring, I believe it's 6 feet wide by 3 feet deep. And then the set of stairs is also 3 feet deep, so roughly 6 by 6.
It might even be a little smaller than that. It's the width of the sliding door is the width of the platform. And I want to say it's about 3 feet from the house. So 3 feet out by I don't know, what is the standard sliding door? Is it 72 inches? It's not large enough for us to put furniture on. And we're not looking for that, to be perfectly clear. Like, this is not a deck for luxury. This is not a deck for hanging out. This is purely for safety, and for egress and for my condition and just making sure things are safe.
Okay, any other questions by board members for either Jesse or for Jennifer? Rick?
For anybody who can answer the question, there was some reference, I think, by the applicant to violations, pre-existing violations of the holdback from the shore dimensional regulations in nearby homes. And if I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but can Jesse or Jennifer tell us anything about that?
Well, I just want to make sure I have the question clearly, but I would say the neighbors certainly have much larger decks for luxury and entertaining, and than we are requesting. The footprints can be seen on Google Maps. Just to give you an idea of like the comparatively speaking, to get measurements to scale. But certainly the other homes that are in the neighborhood, in the subdivision, do have much larger outside decks.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
the question is whether or not those outside decks would violate current requirements if somebody sought to build them now. I
Yeah.
thought you were saying that at some point, and if
Madam
not,
Chair.
fine.
I hate to interrupt Judge Cohen, but really, this isn't applicable. And whether the neighbors are all a pile of criminals is not relevant to a disability variance. It might be relevant, perhaps, on a hardship variance, but as into the character of the neighborhood. But with respect to Judge Cohen, I don't think it's relevant here if the neighbors are all in
Well,
violation.
if the chair rules my question out of order, that's fine. I think it's interesting information.
Well, I have to agree with our attorney on this one, Rick. I think that what is on either side is not particularly relevant for today's question. We don't know when they were built and so forth. So I think that I don't doubt that it's true, but I don't think it has a bearing necessarily on whether or not we grant this variance. So,
And I can submit a photo to give you a to scale image of what it is that we are requesting, just to put the size of it in perspective. But we don't feel that it's destructive to the shoreline integrity, I guess you could say. And it's for safety. I think it's clear when you see it, it's a platform for safety and not one of, for luxury. It's for my health and it's for safety
I think
and egress.
Marcia.
I have three things, I think. And I don't know what order to put them in, but I have a deck that is about 5.5 feet wide and goes down. It's just exactly like the deck that has been explained. And I can fit 2 chairs on it. It's exactly the same. That's my first question. The second question has to do with why can't it be a side egress with a ramp?
We don't have a side door.
You can make one. Okay, and my third one is this offered on Airbnb?
Yes, we
So-
do.
So you're not going to live there in the summer?
No, I am. I blocked the schedule. We stay there all summer. We are obviously out of state. So this is our plan. We're going to be living in Maine full time. And until we can make it there full time, we do rent the property when we're not there. However, we live there in the summer.
All summer, or do you live in Seal Cove or Seal Harbor?
All summer, we will stay there. We'll be there all summer.
Noted. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions by members of the board for either Jennifer or Jesse?
I do.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Just a question. So in order to satisfy the mortgage lender, you built a deck, second entrance, exit, whatever you want to call it, onto the property. And you knew it was in violation of the town's land use ordinance.
I'm not sure what you're asking. We did what we needed
I'm
to do.
asking, did you build that deck after you talked to Jesse?
I don't remember, to be honest, the time frame in which we did
Jesse?
it. I
Jesse?
don't remember.
Jesse might.
Yes. Yes.
So they talked to you and then that deck was built.
Yes.
So in order to meet the requirements of your lender,
I think though that we did send Jesse an email. We did send, I believe we did. I'll have to ask my husband on this, but I do believe we sent a letter to the town to let them know our predicament, that our mortgage was requiring, our mortgage company was requiring we put that in.
so in other words, you notified the town that you were going to violate the land use ordinance to satisfy your mortgage lender.
Well, I wouldn't
If
say
either you did or you didn't, and if you did, you provided proof that you were going to violate the land use ordinance after you had been told otherwise.
I would say that when you're purchasing a home and you're told you have to do this a week before you close, if you've spent months working on the house, then we obviously did what we needed to do to fulfill the terms of our mortgage requirement. That said, we were prepared to take it down after, if that makes sense. So we had to put it up to fulfill the requirement of the insurance, but we were always going to seek a variance.
So in other words, you defrauded your mortgage lender because you built something that you were planning on taking down that was required. I mean, I don't know how you, I don't know how you get out of this quandrum. I don't really see how you get out of this.
No, please don't put words into my mouth.
No, I'm listening for your words.
No, I'm not saying that we built something to fraud our mortgage company in order to take it down. Like, obviously it's still there. That's why we're here.
Is it the same platform that you built?
Yes.
So that's what you built.
Yeah, we had to build a staircase that had a railing in order to fulfill the terms of our requirement. And that is what we did.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Madam
James?
Chair,
Yes, James.
I'm getting the feeling that you're going to be going towards cutting off the applicant here real soon, closing the public hearing and calling for a motion one way or another. I do want to say before you do that to Ms. McLean that while I do not want to give her legal advice, as the town's attorney going forward, number one, I think as a real estate attorney, that it's a violation of your mortgage to be in violation of the zoning ordinance. You probably should get counsel on that. And number two, I don't care what your mortgage company says. As code enforcement officer pointed out, who cares what they say? I don't care what they say. In future, I don't want to hear an argument from you. All I'm saying is in future, don't violate the ordinance. Or the town's going to have to enjoin you for a violation. And if you have a problem with your mortgage company, great, figure it out with them, but that's got nothing to do with the town.
I understand that.
All right, Madam Chair, I'm done. I don't want to get too far down this racket, but I just noticed Mike talking about it and it's really not relevant. I just am upset by the whole concept, but I'm chewing on my hand over here.
All right. Thank you, James. All right. Any other comments, questions from board members? All right. Hearing none, I'm closing the public portion of this hearing. What that means is I cannot hear from anybody but board members at this point. Okay. So discussion or motion, how does the board want to proceed?
I will put a motion in front of the board and we can discuss it. I move that we deny the request for variance of Jennifer McLean and Brendan McPeak.
A second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we deny it. Any discussion on the matter from the board?
I've been noisy, so I'll continue to be noisy.
Go ahead, Mike.
This is a self-inflicted wound. They were told that they couldn't do it by the code enforcement officer. I've seen situations like this in the past where they have made a sale contingent on getting a variance. That freezes things and they can move forward and see if they can get a variance and then they can close on it. There is no reason that this was the only property on this island that was available to them that could meet her medical requirements. Sliders are 6 feet wide and 6 feet's a deck. Okay, the old, I
It's
was
not a deck.
I was born at night, but not last night. There are ways to get around it. There are lateral entrances with exits and entrances, which are allowed by our land use ordinance. In past lives, I have taken a window and turned it into a door with a contractor. That's pretty easily done. Okay, so I don't see this as rising to some inherent attribute of this land that prevents her from adhering to the town's land use ordinance. And for that reason, I will not vote in favor of granting the variance. And I'll promise I'll shut up from here on over.
It's all right, Mike. Thank you. Rick, did you have something you wanted to say?
Just this, I agree with Mike, but I'm also comforted by the fact that this house has a front door. And if the owners of that house want access to their yard, they can go around the house. If this were the only ingress and egress, I would feel differently about it, but it's not. And it'll be an inconvenience, but I think they're not entitled. That's all.
But doesn't that pose a fire hazard?
Jennifer, the public portion has been closed.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's all right. I understand the passion, but at this point, it's only for the board. Okay, thank you. Any other comments before I call for a vote from the board? Okay, hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny this variance request signify please by raising your hands. Any opposed? Marcia, I didn't catch you. Were you were, okay. So I believe it's unanimous that the variance is not approved. So I want to thank you, Jennifer, for attending. We do wish you well, and I hope you'll work with the town to see if there are other ways that you can proceed. But this variance is not granted.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
yes.
I wonder if, what has your practice been in the past vis-a-vis findings of fact and conclusions of law? Do you do much of a write-up or a decision, or do you?
Yeah, I think Jesse, I'm going to turn to you on this. I think we've typically had the town do that for us, and then I stop in and sign it. That's what we've done. Yeah.
Well, I think it should be voted on by the board. I just wanted to note at this juncture, I don't know how much you've been following the trends in the law court, but there is a trend to criticize boards for not doing adequate findings of facts and conclusions of law, which obviously is more for a planning board on an application. But whereas this, in a sense, is a case of first impression, a request for a variance, then I think it might be wise if you do a few findings and then maybe have town manager do a draft and then submit it to the board or to you for circulation, and then vote on it by the board at the next meeting rather than just signing it.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any? Yeah, and thank you for that, James. Anybody have an issue with what James is suggesting?
No.
Great. Okay, then Jesse, if you wouldn't mind, essentially, we
His letter.
yeah, your letter really is the basis of the findings of fact, and that we heard from Ms. McLean and asked appropriate questions and so forth, and found that we could not grant the variance request.
Yeah, it was pretty simple. I think there was the information submitted and so on, and then Ms. McLean's testimony, and Jessica can hit the highlights. But then I think the key factor was that Mike said, Mike or the judge said, she can use the other entrance, and that she came to the problem and there was no need she could use the other entrance. So I think that's about it, unless Jesse finds anything else. But
yeah,
and then the basics, Jesse, what zone she's in, the fact that she's non-conforming, all that stuff. All right.
I said I would shut up, and I guess I lied to you.
Okay.
Here's one thing that's been pretty clear in all the materials that I've seen, and that is that these people in that neighborhood need to come together and try to work this out in a way that restores peace in that neighborhood. It's not necessary. I believe it can happen. It's not the appeals board's role or capability to do it. But I've had situations where I've had bad relations with neighbors, and it makes living in my happy place miserable. So I just urge both parties, who seem to be pretty much joined at the hip, to try to figure out if there's not a way they can work together and get back to an amicable relationship between all of the neighbors. That's, my 2 cents. So thanks.
I would throw my 2 cents in with you, Mike. I do hope the neighbors can see their way clear to figure this out. We've had very contentious situations in the town of Tremont, and actually at meetings of the Board of Appeals, we've seen people come together, and it can happen. So I certainly hope that is the case in this situation. Thank you for that, Mike. That was good.
Thank you. Still a lot to enjoy.
That's right. That's right. All right. I am going to close this portion of the Board of Appeals, and we're going to reopen right away unless somebody needs a break for the second appeal that is coming before us tonight. Can we move right into that? Does the board have a problem with that?
I need a little break. I'll be right back.
Okay. It is 6:05. Why don't we reconvene at 6:10? I'll call you back at 6:10.
Perfect.
Who's this girl?
Find that mute button.
Who's that guy?
Nobody there. It's just
Yeah.
that's chickens.
Okay, everybody back. Looks
Thank
like
you.
we are all here at 6:10. So I am calling the meeting to order. Let's do a roll call. Joanne Harris, Bass Harbor.
Mel Atherton, Bass Harbor.
Marcia Madeira, Bernard,
Richard Cohen, Seal Cove.
Mike Hayes, Bass Harbor.
All right, we have a quorum. Does anybody believe that they need to recuse themselves from hearing the appeal from Bill and Ruth Fernald? Okay, I actually am going to recuse myself. Bill and Ruth are my neighbors. They're literally across the street from me. And probably having discussed this briefly over the internet with our town attorney, it does make sense for me to step back from this. I'll be here to help Mel take over because he's our number two. But you know, I wish I was where you guys were, neighbors down in Florida, but I'm here. Marcia, did you? Yes.
I'm not related.
You just wanted to make that point. Well, that's good.
Getting closer.
Yes, James.
Are you sure?
There are a lot of Fernals on this island, you know.
Fernals. So the other question is, did you have the appropriate notice put in the, wherever you put it, the paper or whatever?
Jesse, can you just affirm for James that we did all the right things?
Yes, they were both noticed at the same time.
Okay. I by the way, I thought that this guy was dead, but that's the realtor. Hell of a nice guy. Colonel, you know.
He's alive and kicking, believe it or not.
Very, very much so. As a neighbor, I can attest to that. Okay, so I'm going to step back, and we still have a quorum with 4 of you, and I'm going to turn it over to Mel, who was voted as vice chair, and assist him in any way I can. So,
Is there any objection to that? Well, the first thing we like is the order of business is William Fernald's appeal. I don't have the date on this.
let's see here.
December 21 is the date that I have for the document. And without going through everything, basically he's looking to add on a staircase and increase the square footage that was denied by the code enforcement officer, John Larson, basically for increasing the square footage. If anybody wants to look at the math on that, that's in the folder. Is there anybody who would like to speak first?
I would ask Bill and Ruth if they have anything they want to explain.
Bill and Ruth, is there anything you'd like to say in support of this?
Yes, hello, and thank you for hearing us. We bought the Seal Cove storage unit in September. I'm speaking for Bill, but he's right here, and we're a team on this. And we're delighted to join the neighborhood. And we did everything we could to improve the property by cleaning up the back and painting all the buildings. We're trying to establish a good relationship with our customers. After working with the property, we understand that the large front building, it's about 120 feet long, has the only access to that upstairs in the building is through the very end of the first unit. And there are staircases to go up the stairs, but that is the only way in and out of this particular building. So we've had electricians, we've had builders, we've had managers, we've had workers, we've had us all upstairs. And then we realized that the only way out was the way we came in. On such a large building, if you're already at the very end and there should be an issue, there is no way out except the way you came in, which means you have to lift the garage door in order to get out through the stairway that's on the very end of the building. So we didn't realize that we were at total capacity for coverage when we submitted our application. We just thought it was just a general concept of putting in a stairway to have a second egress from the building. Then we got the notice that we were at maximum coverage and probably multi-coverage, which we didn't realize either, but we agree, we understand it, but this is a very tiny 3 foot wide by 1 foot coverage in addition to the already established coverage. Put this stairway in for safety and fire egress if there was an issue. So that's basically where we are.
Marcia?
Is
Go
this the
ahead.
building that used to be Miles McIntyre's is up that way in Seal Cove?
It was formerly owned by Bill Patton, and it was built by the Seal Cove Auto. What's his name, Bill?
Payne. His name is Payne.
Payne, yes, thank you, yes.
Yeah, before that, was it Miles McIntyre, across from Miles McIntyre's house? You must know that. It's that long,
Yes, I think,
It's a storage
Yes.
unit, a long storage.
yes, yes.
and what is upstairs?
There's a completed office, and then there's sort of an attic space that runs probably 2/3 of the length of the building.
Just for storage?
Storage, or right now, it's just, we cleaned it out. It was all old insulation. And then we had our workers up there and we realized that there was only one way out.
And you said that there's no way to, you said there's a stairway on the inside to get up there?
That's correct.
Can't you put a door at the bottom?
Mr. Payne, I think Mr. Payne used it as an office when he had an auto dealership there.
Oh, yeah. But can't you just put a door at the bottom of that staircase and call it good?
No, because the access is inside one of the units.
So that's what I wanted to find out. You have to actually go through a unit that someone is renting,
Correct.
and that's not always you. That could
Correct.
be contractors, workers,
Exactly.
anybody. So what you're trying to do is, I mean, I hear two things in this. One is to provide access not through a private unit, which is, somebody who stores their materials there. And the other is for safety in case there were an issue and the staircase through the building would not be a viable option for exiting the building in case of fire, flood, zombie invasion. Whatever.
Exactly right.
Whatever. Okay. Thank you.
So I have another question.
Excuse me, could I ask Jesse to give us the town's position, please?
I think John was.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
John, you're on this, I guess. Are you there? Does not seem so.
Who's he talking
It's
to?
muted. Have we acknowledged John? Is Jesse there?
I am here, yes.
Any idea what happened to John?
Nope, I'm seeing if I can get him.
He's the one that signed the letter, Jesse.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, maybe you could answer the question. Do you know what the reason was for the denial of the application for the staircase?
John just unmuted himself, so he might be able to answer.
Hello, John.
Yes,
Good evening, Mr. Lawson.
good evening.
How are you tonight? This is Mel Atherton. Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Well, hope I didn't scare you. We're dealing with the Fernald's application for a staircase, and wanted to get what your position was and why you denied that application for a staircase.
Because of lot coverage,
Too much coverage.
Yes.
too much coverage. It's too much coverage now. So if they add, you're making something non-conforming more non-conforming.
And of course, that's against the ordinance. Is there an alternative to put a second staircase inside the building and not rent that unit?
No. It's a inside staircase, and that's the way you get in and out of the building. It's 120 feet long.
That answers my question. Mr. Collier, go ahead.
I just want to ask the Fernals whether, I think you went through it, but I wanted to go back to the history of it. The way I understand the world, and Mr. Larson can tell me
How
differently.
about having 2 minutes, 2 meetings at once?
Yeah, the way I understand the world is that
So
you
we'll have
get
a roll call vote. Eric,
John Larson, would you mute your speaker, please?
okay, you get a permit and you move in, right? So your predecessor, whoever that was, Mr. Payne or whomever, got a permit to occupy that building at some point for some use. And then over time, internally, you or your predecessor in ownership decided to use the building differently than was originally intended. And now the needs of the building have changed. I guess that's what I'm driving at, is I don't understand why this is the town's problem if you've created this mess when it's not a, technically speaking, an egress issue.
I'm
Or
sorry.
else you would have got certificate of occupancy.
everybody
It is.
said yes.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Marcia, you were next, I think. Marcia, you had your hand up. Did you have a comment?
I just wondered if 1/3 of the second floor is an office and the other 2/3 are for storage. If somebody's in the storage room, how do they get out?
They don't.
Sorry.
But Mr. Chairman, I want,
They'd
I
have
share
to go-
my question answered if I could.
They'd have to go through somebody's office to get out, no matter what you do.
Right.
I'd still want my question answered, which is, what was the certificate of occupancy for? And then what was created? I want to go through the history of it. Because the law says that you can't create your own hardship. And the fact that it's changed is not the town's problem. But if it was, legally occupied at one point, what was that for? Just the offices or just for storage?
My understanding, it was an auto dealership. They had bays and they had cars that were under repair, and there was an office upstairs. Then it was created, as far as I know, into storage units. And the last storage unit contains the stairs to get upstairs to where the former office was. And so, fine,
not
if
to me.
you don't want to have an access for someone that's upstairs and there's a fire, then shame on all of us for not having a second exit out there.
Right, and not to be mean, but isn't this just a case of poor planning?
It could very well be. The fact that it covers 200 or 300% of the land sounds like poor planning to me.
No, I mean, poor planning is to putting an office in the back part of the building that's not accessible.
Well, it is accessible, but it wasn't created as storage units, I don't think, at the time.
Can I?
Yes, Masha, Masha,
Yes. Could, so if anybody was in the office space that's upstairs with 1/3 of the building, they can get out, right? But so why not put stairways on the inside of the other end of the building so the other people can get out?
They're in someone's rented space.
Yeah, so put a stairway in there so they can get out. Just like so you have
Can
one.
I ask a question about this
just a
structure?
second, Mike. What's his name? Rick. Rick? Could you go ahead, Rick?
Who's Rick?
Go ahead, speak up a little bit.
I understand it. When the use of this building was all under the control and occupancy of one person or party, the fact that there was an inside stairway into one of these bays didn't matter so much. But now the effort, and apparently a successful one, is to rent these bays to other people. And you can't have stairways going down and rely on stairways going down into their units. I mean, I think that's the point that Mike has made already, and it sounds like a valid one to me.
Okay,
I do
Mike?
have, yeah, sorry, I just have one question. The building that we're talking about, I'm pretty sure I know which one it is. When was it constructed? Does anybody know that?
I think when Mr. Payne was alive, because I think he's the one that designed all this when he had his car business there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and he's been dead for
A long time.
quite a lot of years now, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Again,
I used to have a house on Seal Cove Pond that Miles McIntyre built for us. And that was right across 102 from there. That house was built in 1978. And that building, the one we're talking about, was a wreck then. Richard Payne was still alive then, but he was not functioning. The Seal Cove Water Museum was in a trusteeship pursuant to court order. And these garages were a mess. And it's a lot better there now than it was. Anyway, so they're very old buildings.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that, I was looking at the, again, the land use ordinance. It is on page 53 of the land use ordinance. And it, and I honestly, I'm not, oh, wait a minute, I just realized an error. This is a non-conforming wetlands. And they talk about it can't be expanded beyond 30% for anything constructed that existed on January 1st, 1989. But I don't suppose that applies in this circumstance. Even though the structure was there, it was not a yeah, I apologize for wasting your time.
The percentage, I think, was quite high. It was more than the
30.
Yeah, they talk about 30% expansion in that, but that's for shoreland setback requirements with this, which this is not. So,
Well, Mr. Larson, I think you have a number on what the total lot coverage could be and is now, and it's way past. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay. And this is basically beyond what the ordinance allows, correct?
Well, the buildings were built before the ordinance, I believe.
But now we have a change in the building and an additional square footage desired, correct?
So with the ordinance which was enacted, let's see what it is here. The ordinance was enacted in 88.
Okay. And when did the Fernals purchase the property?
2021.
Thank you. Any other comment?
I just
More
want
input.
to,
Pardon me?
I
Go
just
ahead.
like to, I said, I'd just like to communicate that the reason that we've gone down this road is that it is very dangerous for us to go up those stairs and be in that huge building and not being able to get out short of jumping out the window. There is a door up there, but at the very end of the building, 120 feet from where you got in. So it seemed to me that if you're upstairs in this finished office space, that you would want to at least be able to get out safely. And that's the reason that we've asked for this variance. We understand now that we submitted this application that we're much more than is required to cover the property. So we can't expand any further, but this isn't really for expansion. This is basically for safety for our folks to get out if they're upstairs, whether it's an electrician, a worker, a manager, an owner, whoever else happens to be up there needs to be able to have some safe way of getting out. And that's what we're after.
Thank you. Any other comments? Marcia?
What are the spaces upstairs rented for? Just
There's
storage?
no rentals upstairs.
Well, what's up there?
Rentals upstairs.
What's up there?
It's a vacant space, but we've sent people up there, the electrician, the people that run the cable, the workers. We've had workers cleaning out all kinds of old insulation.
What's it gonna be used for?
Excuse me?
What will it be used for in the future?
Well, right now, we don't have any use for it.
And you don't need an egress. You don't have anybody up there.
We do have several people up there. We've had workers up there spending weeks trying to get the old insulation out. We've had our electrician go up there to put in wires. I mean, it's a possibility that we could use it for storage if we have a way short of our other way to get inside of it, but that isn't our plan right now. Our plan is to blacktop the hot driveway and make it as nice as we can to be a good neighbor. But we also want to be a safe neighbor. And if people are up there and they can't get out, the only way they can get out is through the original entrance to someone else's garage that is locked and we don't even have a key, or we jump out the window. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I'd probably close the public hearing part of the meeting and open it up to the board. If anybody cared to make a motion, whether to uphold Mr. Larson's ruling or not, please go forward.
I move to approve the request for variance of the for Knowles committees.
Been made and second to approve the variance and allow the staircase. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
Mr. Collier?
While I would normally not comment with that motion, I do want to remind the board, if I can, and I apologize for reminding you of something you should probably already know, but the case law is clear. On variances, it's the level is strict compliance with the law.
Could you refresh what those 4 steps are for us, Mr.
And
Collier?
those 4 steps, which are both in Title 30A, Section 4353, Sub 4, and in your ordinance on page 69, are that the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return unless a variance is granted. The need for a variance is due to the unique circumstances of the property and not to the general conditions of the neighborhood. The granting of a variance will not alter the essential character of the locality. And the 4th one is the hardship is not the result of the action taken by the applicant or prior owner. Now, my problem from this, strictly as a legal matter, is that the property can yield all kinds of return for a whole bunch of things. There's lots of things to use it for. And the fact that you can or cannot access any part of your building, big deal. This standard in the case law for reasonable return is very, very tough to meet. And I just don't think, legally speaking, it could in any way be met here. They can use it for storage, they can use the downstairs part. So that's one thing. And then secondly, under the fourth standard, the hardship does not result of the action taken by the applicant or the prior owner. Here, I think it's crystal clear. And Mrs. Fernald, I mean, sort of damned herself in her own words, you know, because when Marcia asked her what she's doing, well, the answer is don't do it then. Get them out of there. Stick some storage up there. If you want to have access to if they want to have access to the other end of the building, the answer is clear. Call Mr. Larson, get another set of stairs inside the building. So I don't have any opinion on what the board does, but as a matter of law here, I think if you approve this variance, well, you shouldn't, because as a matter of law, it should be overturned.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. Any other statements? Well, as a chair, I'd like to say that it seems to violate the square footage, which is undeniably true. And also, let me ask the Fernals, are there any one of these four steps that you think we should consider undue hardship, or any other steps that Mr. Collier mentioned that specifically apply to this case to make us grant the variance?
The only point I'd like to really communicate is that there is a danger to having such a large building and having only one way in and the same way out, regardless of what's up there. Right now, it's a completed office space up there. We haven't used it. We inherited it when we bought it. We are just trying to keep people safe and put an access so that people can get in and out of the building. And if that's illegal, we understand it. That's why we did the variance. We knew after we got the application submitted that we were covering too much ground. Well, how much more is a 3-foot wide, 1-foot stairway of covering the ground?
It's 4 foot.
I'm asking,
Mr. Chairman.
3 square feet.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I don't want to be argumentative with Mrs. Fernald. The Fernalds are now very nice people, but I do want to say that I think she misunderstands the land use process. The process, if you may, is to go to the code enforcement officer and discuss a solution. So you go to the code enforcement officer and say, listen, we'd like to have an office, or we'd like to do this, or we'd like to do that. Can we do that legally? Because right now the code enforcement officer is saying that's not legal to have an outside staircase. So if you're going to have an office or whatever you want to do there, go to the code enforcement officer, and I think it's going to have to be inside, legally speaking.
Well, we
Right.
didn't understand that was the process. We just filled out an application and submitted it. And that's when we found out that in fact, the ground had been more than covered.
Rick, go ahead, please.
I'm impressed with two things about this application. Well, actually, three things. Number one is that the Fernals want to improve the property. That's something that I don't ordinarily like to discourage. Number two is that they're concerned with a really present, serious safety problem. That's not something they made up as an excuse. And third is that the permission that they're asking us to grant them is so negligible. It's almost disappearingly small. I wouldn't be afraid of any court reversing a grant on this one.
Anybody else? Well, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to call for a vote. The motion was made by, Marcia, go ahead.
I'd like to know if this would, if we grant this variance, can it happen again someplace else based on if we grant this here, somebody else comes along and said, well, you gave it to them, why can't we have it? You know,
Um,
they're already over the
Vice
limit.
Chair, do you want me to get in on that?
Please do.
Well, it's an easy question to answer. On the one hand, there's no stare decisis or precedent by zoning cases. The board is free to make mistakes every time and to change their mind and correct their mistakes next time. So the short answer is no problem. The more practical answer is, you know what people will do? The next time you have the same problem, somebody will say, hey, you let the Fernals get away with it. So it's a practical problem. And as a town attorney for 20 years, and Mr. Larson's been code enforcement officer many times, for many years, I think the answer to all of these things is to always take a hard line. I disagree vehemently with Mr. Cohen. If it's 3 feet by 2 feet or it's 6 inches, it's more non-conforming. And the principle is the principle.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. Mike?
Just an observation. Quick question of Fernald. How big are the bays in those units?
The ones, the lower portion of the bays are 10 by 20, and there are 12 of them.
Okay, all right.
And then there's the
My-
backside.
My only thought is, regardless of what you do, there are going to be costs involved in putting, you know, the stairs and putting and everything like that.
Absolutely.
So the notion that you could move that to the inside, you would reduce the amount of one bay in terms of storage, but you could run a stair on the inside down to and put a door in at the lower level. I'm just. I'm
You know,
so
Mike,
torn.
there's a metal roof on this building. There's no way you're gonna put any stairway on the inside, short of, you know, a huge alteration of the existing building. But if you guys don't want us to put in a staircase, then that's fine with us, but that's what we're trying to do, is just to make it safe.
Gotcha.
Any other comments? Well, Mike, just could you state your motion again to make sure everybody understands?
The motion that I made was to allow the request for an exterior stairway for the property in question.
So the vote's to allow the staircase. Everybody understand the vote? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Well, it seems we have a tie. So the variance is not, the motion doesn't pass. So the statement by the CEO stands fast, and the variance is again denied. Any statement?
Well, do you want to have a, I guess so there's no motion to approve. So is that as far as you want to go? Do you want to try for a motion to deny, or do you just want to leave it at that?
I think we should go with your advice. And what would your advice be? With a motion to deny?
I'm unsure. Frankly, I'm just unsure. I usually would say a motion to
We pay you
deny.
for it. We pay you for sure advice here.
I know. I can tell you the motion does not carry. So it's not,
That's correct. Yeah, it was tied, so
There's no
that does not
variance.
carry. Am I correct in saying that?
yeah, you definitely. So
All right.
I think I misspoke myself. Just leave it at that.
I'm good with that.
Do the same thing as we mentioned with the other one, get findings of fact.
I'm good with that. I'm good with it too. I think the rest of the board is.
Yeah,
Any other comments?
no,
Well, I think it's time to bid adieu. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been made and second to adjourn. All those in favor? Good night. Have a good evening. Watch out for the weather tomorrow.
thank you. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.